Wakey, wakey, hello, good morning, and many thanks indeed for joining us here on Morning Prime on this day of Wednesday, the 18th of October 2023. And every Wednesday we have Global Today coming your way, where we focus on matters foreign policy, diplomacy and security, and also just looking at the current state of play as far as current affairs is concerned here in the country as well. We'll be joined much later by Professor Peter Kagwanja, who is the CEO of Africa Policy Institute. Also will be joined by historian from the University of Nairobi. This is Dr. Ken Ombongi. We'll be joined by Yusuf Hassan, who is the Defense and Foreign Relations Committee member from the National Assembly, also member of Parliament from Kamukunji as well, and Dr. Simeon Sungi, who is from the USAU Criminal Justice Department, where he is a professor as well. A lot that we have to cover, looking and gazing on what is happening currently. Every eye is centered around and fixated around Israel and Gaza war that is ongoing, with new threats, of course, coming from the regions as well. Looking at Hezbollah and what has been happening so far in retaliations and throwing some of the rockets also on the borders of Israel. So what does it really portend? Our president is in China. We will be looking at the scene of Kenya-China ties, and especially the success and the failures of SGR, as it were, and what also the president is proposing regarding SGR and how it is going to make discernible difference as well. We shall be discussing intensively regarding the China-Kenya relations as well, and what it does portend, even by the fact that Kenya never appeared for the BRICS meeting. But is this making any discernible difference, especially on our foreign relations with China? That much more will be happening also as we ensue with our discussions with our panelists here. You get to drive a show with me. Remember, you can hit us on our X, which is at KTN News, also at Divalane. That is my X handle, but you can use it. We're trying to get used to the term X. Just quite a wide departure from Twitter. All right, that's how it will be today. And make sure so you get laid up. It's a bit cold as we're coming to work, 17 degrees, but that is bound to maybe change today. So make sure you keep yourself also armed with a brolly or an umbrella to make sure that you're not rained on. But let's see what is fresh off the press this morning, beginning with the Standard. This is what is on the front page of the Standard this morning. DCI goes after MP police bosses over Mavoko lands. At least 6 police chiefs, 2 county heads, officials of Aimi Lukenya Society and Mavoko MP Patrick Macau are expected to shed light on how Portland's land was sold fraudulently. You have the story on page 2 and 3 of a Standard today, and the intrigues continues apace. There it says the intrigues behind the sale of parcels of land and subsequent demolitions deepened after the company asked Kenyans to grab the opportunity and buy its plots, as many investors spent the night in the cold after their homes were brought down. This, as the true value of the property comes to light, revealing tens of billions at stake. That is the story that you want to follow. 30 pencils of interest expect to be grilled by the DCI. And you can see yesterday also, Azimio leader Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka and Machakos Governor Wavinya Ndeti read a statement after they were blocked from accessing the demolition grounds at the East African Portland Company in Mavoko yesterday. That story, of course, it is well laid out again on page 2 and 3 of the Standard for you. Foreigners among Lamu most wanted terrorists. Foreigners among Lamu most wanted terrorists is another story that you need to follow inside the Standard this morning. And you can see some of the faces there. Andreas Martin Mula, Suleiman Makhtoum, Yusuf, and now we have Fahad as well, Jamalo amongst others, who are among the Lamu most wanted terrorists, as was listed yesterday by the CS of Interior. That story continues on page 2 of the Standard this morning. Now, Treasury is turning to Kenyans for tax ideas. Treasury is turning to Kenyans for tax ideas, right? That story continues on page 17 of the Standard this morning. And by the way, even looking at the tax amnesty, around 3.4 billion shillings has been collected by KRA so far with that tax amnesty. But that is way below what they were targeting, which is 15 billion shillings. And so they're scratching their heads on how to actually now try and tax you. talking about taxes, much later also you'll learn about the Kisii churches which are raising uproar regarding the tax that is being levied on them when they go for keshas, the nighttime prayers. So if you're in Kisii and you know you have a kesha, remember you'll be taxed. This is from the county level as well. So taxes everywhere, and Treasury also is looking forward to picking your brains on how they can get new ideas on how they can tax you. That is a standard this morning. Looking at the teaser on top, 15 officers to answer on kidnap charges. That is the story on page 8 of the Standard. And sherry and sold as farmers set for harvest. And remember also you have the Enterprise magazine that comes in handy for you every Wednesday inside the Standard to get all the wiser as far as entrepreneurship is concerned. Stars raring to go in WC qualifiers. That is on page 32 of the Standard this morning. The Daily Nation is all about also what is happening in Mavoko. MP faces probe, and this is Patrick Macau, who is a member of parliament for Mavoko. Mavoko MP Patrick Macau is among 30 individuals, including officials of land buying companies, former police chiefs and land registrars, are summoned by detectives today over the sale and settlement of squatters on parcels claimed by Cement Farm. And you can see just a telling picture there on a house there, three-story house there that was actually brought down. The red flags that homeowners ignored, because this was also published in the dailies. One of the clearest signals that the East African Portland cement land dwellers will lose their assets emerged in November last year. It came from the then Trade Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria. And you can read the story on page 6 and 7 of the Daily Nation for that particular revelation. And here were some of the red flags. I can just enumerate them as it has been published by the Daily Nation there. First of all, we have CS Moses Kuria's warning. It says here, the then trade CS proclaimed in November 2022 that structures will be flattened. All right. Then lack of titles. Affected residents said the only ownership documents they had were certificates with a promise of title deeds by the end of this year. All right. Then we have 3, relatively cheap property. A local remembered a time when a 50 by 100 plot went for 50,000 shillings, only 35 minutes away from the capital on a motorbike and 34 minutes via the expressway. This was cheap compared to other plots in the vicinity. Also, we have, oops, it jumps to the next page. Let me just go back there so that I can read you the last flag there. This is what I was telling you about the Kisii churches protesting at bid to tax them for overnight prayers. There's an attempt there, even as they are seeking to have new ideas from you. That is from the county level as well. Now, the fourth one here is the red flag regarding the notices. The East Africa Portland Cement Company has been giving warnings over the years in various forms, including on billboards. So caveat emptors were there, buyer beware, and it seems most of Kenyans who had actually purchased land there, they ignored that. And you can read also what the flagger is saying here on top. Land saga, day of drama as police block Azimio leader Raila Odinga from accessing demolition site. And this is quite telling, and we hope the DCI will do the due diligence to make sure that people who are actually involved in this fraudulent purchase of land or fraudulent robbing of Kenyans of their houses are actually brought to book. This is the Daily Nation. And there's a problem question here on the front page of the Star. Remember, we had the ad hoc committee visiting Ezekiel Odera's premises there to just scope out to find out some of the allegations about morgues that were found there and if there were any nefarious activities that were happening inside there. And now people are questioning who really bankrolled this as far as the Star is concerned. Who bankrolled MP's trip to Ezekiel Church? Was he the one who financed that? Because he indicated during that particular sitting with the ad hoc committee that he was desirous of even the committee to come there and just make sure they scope out for themselves and verify some of these allegations regarding morgues, if they're really there or not. And yesterday we had also the chair of the ad hoc committee, Danson Mungatana telling us much more of what they got from the ground that is dramatically different from what the media has been reporting regarding Ezekiel and his association with Pastor Mackenzie, especially on the issue of the Shakahola. That has been, of course, the biggest one. But he says the only connection that he had with Pastor Mackenzie was his attempt to actually trying to purchase his TV station, the Times TV. So you have a story continuing on page 4 and 5. You can find out if he bankrolled this or not. But I sought the chair's views on this and said these are total fabrication. It never really happened. And also another member from the committee, Richard Onyonka, as well, he says this is not true. That is a story you want to follow on page 4 and 5 of the Star this morning. When it rains, wall collapses on vehicles after downpour. And this is the tragedy. So the structures which are a bit rickety right now will get affected with the rains. The wind, the gale is so strong. And this is how also when you park near walls, you can be affected as well. Counting losses, damaged vehicles buried under rubble after a perimeter wall collapse following heavy rains in Kitui town on Monday. Look at that. Look at that. Right? All right, so does insurance really cater for this? This is an act of God, they will say. Force majeure, you get to lose all your property, your vehicles there as far as the walls are concerned as well. You can read the story inside the Star. Oh, that's just a picture, but regarding the rains and El Nino that is forthcoming, what are the preparations? Police, even as they're preparing, they need to test some of these structures. How strong are they to withstand flood and the gale, the strong winds? That can be, imagine, if someone was inside the car or maybe was nearby, will have been actually adversely injured and devastated. Police arrest Naivasha couple after son 5 dies. A couple has been locked up at Naivasha police station over the controversial death of his son a week ago in Karagita Estate along Moi South Lake Road. The couple, both in the mid-20s, were arrested after a postmortem showed the 5-year-old boy had been tortured. That story continues on page 3 of the Star this morning. And MPs give dialogue team 30 more days to conclude talks. Extension has been awarded here. Parliament has granted the National Dialogue Committee a month's extension to conclude its mandate. MPs on Tuesday voted to extend the timelines after the committee requested for more time. The team was to submit a report to the bicameral parliament by the end of this month. This is October. And this story continues on page 6 of the Star this morning. Coast hotels win big at 30th World Travel Awards in Dubai. Kenya hotels won big during the 30th World Travel Awards Africa and Indian Ocean Gala ceremony on Sunday night at Atlantis, the Royal Dubai, Diamond Stream of Africa, Swahili Beach, Baobab Beach and Resort, Billionaire Resort, Leopards Beach Hotel, and Sarova White Sand were named among Africa's best. You have a story on page 10 of the Star this morning. On top, victims were warned, and Portland says victims was of their own making, lobby vows to sue. You have a story on page 2 of the Star this morning. Still, the paper daily is holding what is happening with Mavoko MP to be grilled over land fraud. Mavoko demolitions, it says, legislator among 30 suspects summoned by DCI to shed light on irregular sale of Portland cement land as Raila blocked from visiting the scene. We have Julius Mutua official. Also we have Patrick Macau, who's an MP. And we have Oliver Karibai, MD Portland Cement, saying the society's case crumbled due to their inability to produce the original title, contract documents, or any evidence of payment. And you can see an insert there. Azimio leader Raila Odinga is stopped by police when Senator Edwin Sifuna of Nairobi and Machakos, Governor of Vinya Ndeti, tried to visit the disputed land where the East African Portland Cement Company is demolishing houses after winning a court case against homeowners who settled on the land irregularly. And this story has been ongoing, or the case has been ongoing for quite a while. KRA collects 3.8 billion shillings from tax amnesty program. That is also another story that you can follow inside the People Daily this morning. Marathoner Ekiru, I should say, gets 10-year ban from doping. Bill as the 6th fastest runner of all time. 31-year-old suffers big blow for using banned drugs or drug. You can follow the story inside the People Daily. All set for Mashujaa Day event. Highlight of national celebrations will be launch launch of universal health coverage. This is what PS Raymond Molos says while he was inspecting, or he said while he was inspecting the venue. And high cost of fuel sparks uproar in Parliament. Lawmakers demand answers over why consumers have been paying more at the pump. You have this story on page 6 of the People Daily this morning. Let's see what Taifa Leo is holding. Uhuni wa mchana. That is the splash this morning. Maswali tele huku kampuni ikitangaza mpango wa kuuza ardhi yenye utata siku chache baada ya ubomoaji. And you can see how to work there is the bulldozer that was wrecking down, or actually raising down the buildings or the homes there. You can follow the story inside Taifa Leo this morning. And this is one of the notices, as you can see it here, that had been published before. Notice to the general public, regularization of that particular land title in Mavoko. And it reads, if maybe they missed this, that East African Portland Cement wishes to notify members of the public of its offer to sell the above reference parcel of land via regularization model. This is now regarding not actually previous notices, but actually selling of this parcel of land that now the court has awarded them. So will you have bugbears and fears of actually buying this particular land, right? You can read all about it inside Taifa Leo. Maombi kutozwa ushuru, wahubiri kulipa 20,000 kabla ya kuandaa kesha za maombi. That is the story that you want to follow on page 4 of Taifa Leo, happening in Kisii. Remember, also here in Nairobi, we had such for the preachers who want to preach in Aga Khan Walk, and also Jivanji as well. If you want to preach there, you will be taxed as well. And Ezekiel hakutulipa nauli. This is what Senator is saying. Mungatana ajibu tetesi mhubiri aligharimia ziara za maseneta Kilifi, and that is the current state of play. He certainly denies that actually Ezekiel bankrolled that after he had expressed that he's desirous of them to come and investigate or try and scope around and see if these allegations that were in the public domain and the social media actually were holding true. We have that story inside Taifa Leo this morning. Let's buckle down to some business now, where tax cheats ditch mobile payments to beat KRA is a splash this morning. Tax cheats ditch mobile payments to beat KRA. Now, traders are asking customers to pay cash. KRA deployed 1,400 revenue assistants to enhance compliance, and they're dressed in black and white, by the way. They're looking like real kanjus. This is KRA kanjus, so to speak. And it says that Kenya Revenue Authority has flagged growing number of business owners ditching mobile merchants' payment accounts and reverting to cash transactions since it enhanced compliance checks in the major towns last month. You can follow this story on page 2 of the Business Daily. And Kenya Power floated on rules in smart meters tender. The procurement watchdog has thrown Kenya Power under the bus of the acquisition of 5.43 billion shillings smart meters in a deal that has been blamed for delays in connecting hundreds of thousands of homes and businesses to the national grid. You can follow the story on page 2 of the Business Daily this morning. Fuel levy collections dropped by nearly 1 billion shillings on higher taxes, right? Proves to be counterproductive, it says here. Collections from the Petroleum Development Levy, PDL, dipped by nearly 1 billion shillings in the year ended June, pointing to the depressed consumption of super petrol and diesel. And EIB to audit GDC. The European Investment Bank is planning to audit how geothermal development company GDC spent 2.71 million euros. That is 427.6 million shillings subsidy it received for exploration and development of geothermal resources. Dubai-based luxury travel firm Mifta enters Kenya. That is a story that you can follow inside the Business Daily this morning. All right, I shall be showing you what we have on the front page of the Daily Monitor, and also the Citizen, looking at the China Daily The Economist and the rest of the publications internationally so far, and also the editorial cartoon that will set tone for our discussion as well. But right now, let me just acknowledge my guest who already here in studio, up and Ali, to just give us the introductory remarks, where they've been so far, how the week has been, and what has been the highlights of the moment, looking internationally as well, following the war in Israel and, of course, Palestine. What is the way forward? Do we see any secession? We can see also the Russian president right now has proffered a hand of mediation. And also, on the other hand, the Russian Duma parliament has rolled back on the nuclear safety treaty that they had signed, especially the testing treaty, that is the CBT. We shall be telling you much more regarding that as well. But let me just begin with Professor Peter Kagwanja. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you too.
Yes, it's a beautiful day.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day. The rains are here, so we're happy. At least the cows and the camels will enjoy meal. Yeah, it has been a good week. As we said yesterday, I've been busy drafting a book, finishing a book on what is going on in China.
In China?
Yeah, the Belt and Road Initiative. That's the march I've been doing this week. So I've been cross doors.
Yes, and of course we had sentiments from the president regarding also the SGR and its extension that will make a discernible difference in this country that people are not really realizing right now, but moving forward, I think it's going to be exceedingly beneficial for this country as well. Right, let's hear from Dr. Ken Ombogi. We missed you last week. Good morning, good to see you.
Morning, Dibba.
Yes.
Well, it's a good week. This one in the academy, some of us will operate. Preparing next week to host one of our seminars, talking about Kiminyole Orikayot Samoei, the Nandi great leader, who was killed by the British through a very treacherous affair in Nandi Hills, hosting one of the celebrated British historians, David Anderson, to speak on that. Just before we welcome King Charles III.
Yes.
It's one way of saying the best way to welcome the King of the United Kingdom is really to revisit our history of, our shared history, and of course one that is characterized by quite a bit of trickery and some level of interesting challenges. So it's been interesting. Come with the rains, in my cultural orientation, showers of blessings like this one are literally that, blessings in the morning.
Blessings in the morning.
Yes.
Right, Yusuf Hassan, good to see you. Blessings in the morning. You've been showered on?
Well, yeah, very heavy showers.
Heavy showers?
Yes, rain is always welcome in the African tradition and also climatically all around the world. But the fear is what is behind it if it turns into El Nino and kind of floods us with water. Obviously, the blessing could turn into a curse. So we hope it is just a blessing that provides ample water supplies to our farmers, to our livestock owners, and so on, and would very much help in lifting up our economy. But for us, it has also been a very busy week in Parliament.
Yes.
We've had yesterday, for example, we had a morning session in order to accelerate the passing of the universal health coverage bill.
Yes, so it came to the National Assembly from the Senate.
Yes, indeed. And it needs to be out there, apparently. There's a lot of rush because the President is going to make some important announcement on the way forward in universal health coverage on the 20th, on Mashujaa Day. But it's also important to reflect on Mashujaa Day and in fact inspired by the fact that we are looking at our past, the colonial past, in which Kenya was one of the places where we had an armed uprising.
Yes.
And the response of the British colonialists, in fact, in the 1950s was horrendous. the indiscriminate killing of civilians, torture, and the suffering. And up to this moment, although it is quite a recent history, there has never been a reckoning or any reflection on the part of the British colonial system to apologize for the massive crimes against humanity that were committed here by the British government during the Mau Mau. And also, on the other hand, we haven't done enough as a country to restore the dignity and the confidence of the people who were devastated by that conflict.
Indeed.
Nor do we celebrate enough and honor enough the heroes of our struggle, particularly the most important one, which is the Mau Mau. And I think there's a need for a change. One day we should be able to say that, in fact, we have acknowledged and we celebrate all the heroes and heroines of our struggle, just like many other countries do in the world. It is a constant reminder that, in fact, there are people who paid the ultimate price for the independence and the fruits of independence that we are enjoying now as a country and as a people.
Right, but you as a committee, is it, or maybe just legislators, but now that you're here and you're on the Foreign Relations and Defense Committee as well, there is the Veterans Act was bill, it went through the rigors. It has been now installed as an act that is meant to really cater for, you know, security personnel that go out there, fought for the country, love the country. But even before the Veterans Bill, why wouldn't it have actually captured the entire, as you say, some of the victims of all these soldiers, the bulwarks that went before us to fight for independence, the Mau Mau, they are given, you know, a bit of dignity and respect because of what they did. You know, they lost their land, lost their lives, lost their spouses as well. What will be sort of, not really tokenism, but something of a sentimental value that even from your committee you can come up with, even a legislation to pass, just as the Veterans Bill is there, they can actually be considered as veterans as well. I'm surprised that they're not considered as veterans. No, because there has been unwillingness on the part of the Kenyan government to fully acknowledge and focus on that particular past. It seems to have been a past that some of the Kenyan political elites are uncomfortable about. And I think the Mau Mau movement has never been recognized for what it was, that it was a national liberation movement. Yes. And without the Mau Mau, we would never have enjoyed independence as quickly as we did in 1963. Yes. It could have taken many years. This was a white man's country. It was intended to be a settler colonial system, like South Africa's, Zimbabwe, and Namibia. Yes. But that particular white man's project was short-circuited by the Mau Mau uprising. And as you know, that history is that the Mau Mau was crushed by the British in a very violent, brutal way. And the successors to the Mau Mau were people who didn't feel that they were part of that struggle, or they were inheritors of the benefits that were brought up by the national liberation movement that existed at that particular moment. And so it's only recently that we're coming to terms with it. And in the case of Britain, Britain has not only not apologized, but has not provided full compensation for the victims of this horrendous conflict that claims the life of thousands of people, disrooted, completely dislocated the largest population of any community. You know, millions of members of the Kikuyu community were concentrated and put into concentration camps for extended period. It's one of the worst atrocities, mass atrocities of the African liberation struggle and struggle against colonialism. Right, but what is the currents? Because looking at other dailies, or just reading the Times, I think last week, where they were talking about the visit now of His Majesty the King here in the country, and they were giving back of course, or harking back to history, or the atrocities that you're talking about, and how he's coming also to sort of mend fences. But the issue of compensation, according to that daily, that has been settled. So
No. What? Who has settled what? It's just a small group of people who went to court who won that particular case in the United Kingdom. But do you know how many thousands of people were affected in the central region?
But indeed,
of
when we
Kenya?
talk about compensation, then have we come up with any documentary evidence that we say this is a figure that we want to be documented, or in what ways are we, compensated, or in what ways are we talking about this compensation? Just briefly.
No, I think
or we wait for the king, then we shall broach this matters one now
I think
while he's here in the country.
The first thing that needs to be done is an unequivocal apology to the peoples of Kenya by the British. That's basically, and I think what Mheshimiwa is talking about is what they call the Britain's Gulag. A Britain's Gulag is the equivalent of the mass killings of people that was done in Russia during the war, the previous wars. And it is the same thing we experience. I come from a Mau Mau family. My uncle was one of the generals in the Abadeas, Ihuras, you know, Ihura Stadium in Muranga, that kind of thing. To the best of my knowledge, there has not been compensation to that family at all. So when people say that people are compensated, I'm not aware. I know General Kago, he came from the other age, and was my uncle's friend before the war. I think we were initiated together. I knew the family. There has not been any compensation to that family. And you can single out key, Mukami Kimathi did not say that she was compensated for what happened. We are not aware that she was compensated. Otherwise, to the end, she was basically suffering from, the usual problems that are afflicting the Mau Mau families. So first, it's a question of apology, and therefore the rehabilitation of the Mau Mau officially from the British end. Remember, the Mau Mau are existing legally because Kibaki issued them with a certificate. That's all. Otherwise, under Kenyatta, Jomo Kenyatta, under Daniel Moi, the Mau Mau were criminals. It was still a violent movement. It was actually criminal to mention even the name of Kimathi, Dedan Kimathi, up to and including 2 or 3, which is bad. And finally, one would say that we need to see more of the monuments of the freedom fighters across the country. Koitarero Arap Samoei, his father before that time, particularly Koitarero Arap Samoei, as the first wave of resistance against the British, and then the second wave would comprise of the Mau Mau, because the resistance to the British occupation and conquest and came in waves, and that first wave, those leaders need to be recognized, and the Mau Mau also need to be recognized. And if you read the histories, and they are now in the bookshelves, if you read the histories of the British involvement in Kenya, particularly the same guy who killed Koitarero Arap Samoei in Nandi, came and wrote letters of how he butchered my people in Muranga. Every evening he would come with a record of how many natives he has killed. And I read that book in Dar es Salaam as I was attending a meeting there, and I wondered, his purpose of talking about my great-grandfathers and my great-grandmothers, that, and he has written letters home to his family of how he butchered. This is the kind of atrocities we are talking about.
Thank you.
That apology is absolutely necessary and urgent.
All right. So let's not
let me
put the cat before the horse.
Weigh in on this debate on Mau Mau Dipal. I'm a historian, and those are the dynamics that we deal with virtually every day. Last year, I hosted a conference, an international conference on Mau Mau, trying to recast the movement and see whether we can create a new and novel understanding of this very complex and convoluted movement of Kenya's freedom struggle. But the question, Dibal, we really need to grapple with when we discuss the Mau Mau movement is why are politicians divided on what to do with the Mau Mau veterans? Why has it become so difficult to compensate Professor Kawanche's relatives who paid the ultimate price of their own lives to liberate this country? Dibal, Mau Mau and the reading of it and appropriation of it has been a process characterized by a lot of trickery and betrayal, if you asked me. And it has ended up also exhibiting a very interesting binary of a movement that has divided us more than united us. For example, if you begin to talk about compensation, who do you compensate? Because we have had a process in post-colonial Kenya where Mau Mau has been appropriated to inform, political exploitation and harnessing of national resources in such a ways that defranchise one part of the country vis-a-vis the other. And what we have is, I'm sure Professor Kawanja, you know this, is what Professor John Lonsdale calls Mau Maus of the mind, where everybody uses Mau Mau as an entitlement to access national resources. So I think what we need to have, and the visit of His Majesty the King of the UK is a very interesting moment, is to begin to have a conversation over this and have a conversation that will inform, one, the apology that the profuse apology that we need to hear from those who perpetrated violence against our own people, and also to begin to have a very clear and an informed discussion on how we can remember, number one, the veterans, and number two, the compensation that we have talked about over the years. Yes.
All right. All right, thank you. And we shall, of course, be talking more when the king comes. So, as you're saying, we expect an apology that has been, of course, being sought for a while now, since we got independence from the British. And we want to, of course, go to the East African Portland Cement Company, which has defended the action, saying the action of demolition, saying it will continue despite mounting pressures from a section of Kenyans. The cement company broke its silence yesterday, saying it had issued adequate notice to settlers to vacate from its approximately 4,900-acre piece of land at Mavoko in Machakos. And as KTN's David Moboka reports, the demolition exercise continued for the 5th day as efforts by Azimio leaders to visit the site were thwarted.
After being on the spot for tearing down homes built illegally on its 4,293-acre piece of land at Mavoko in Machakos since Friday last week, the East Africa Portland Cement has come out to defend the ongoing demolitions. Speaking for the first time since bulldozers began to roar in Mavoko, to the agony of hundreds of families that called the land home, the government-controlled cement company has said it had no choice but to evict all squatters and alleged invaders from the Mavoko land, following a court ruling last week that declared the controversy-ridden land a property of Portland Cement.
Before and after court ruling, East African Portland Cement made direct appeals to illegal invaders to vacate the land and provided a grace period for them to retrieve their belongings. These messages were conveyed through multiple channels, including public notices, media, and engagement with the local administration.
The firm has further denied flushing people out of its Mavoko land so as to regularize it, noting that an advertisement it had placed on a local newspaper for the regularization of a land in Mavoko was for a different land in the same area.
The process for regularization began in 2021. Since then, the negotiations and the mapping exercises have been going on.
The cement company's chairperson, retired Brigadier Richard Mbithi, was however at pains to explain what then necessitated the rush to evict people from the land if Portland Cement was in violation of Article 43 that entitles every Kenyan shelter by conducting the demolitions in earnest, and whether the President William Ruto government was reading from a different script, having assured Kenyans that such demolitions will be a thing of the past.
Do you think that question can be answered in this forum? Are you sure you want me to answer that on behalf of the government?
This as the demolitions continued on Tuesday at the Portland Cement's Mavoko land under tight supervision of hawk-eyed and tough-talking police officers.
I can't because it will interrupt what is going on.
No one was allowed in, not even Azimio leaders who were turned away on Saturday and were back again on Tuesday, hoping to be second time lucky.
Si nikubaliwe basi, nikubaliwe niende nione tu watu wangu wako aje.
Just because the President Ruto alikuja akapeana amri, that's what we are following blindly.
Nani amefanya amri?
Of course he gave orders here.
Yeah?
Nobody gave these people a chance to pursue further legal redress. Someone who seemed to have known how the court was going to rule stood ready to swing into action and inflict maximum pain on residents immediately the ruling was made.
Eventually and unwillingly, the leaders left. The demolitions continued unperturbed, raising the number of families that will tonight sleep without a roof above their heads, uncertain of what to do or where to go next. Despite the cries and the wails of more than 100 families affected and the sustained condemnation from the opposition, the East Africa Portland Cement continued with its destructive eviction for a fifth consecutive day on Tuesday. David Muthoka, KTN News from Mavoko, Machakos County.
It has been aptly captured by Victor today inside the Daily Nation, and you can see the pose of goons there, the crocodile tears, and waiting for that ample opportunity. And this is what has been happening so far. The issue of being inhumane, the issue of caveat emptor, buyer beware, but publications were done. The court has ordered now that the land belongs to East African Cement, but the nature and the way the government was quick off the mark to try and raise down some of its properties that were there and have been destroyed so far, raising eyebrows regarding how we are treating our citizens as well. And this is where I wanted to come to you, Mheshimiwa, especially now that we have the sessions in the House. This matter has not been broached. Will it be broached? And just not Mavoko, the fraudulent acquisition of land that is ongoing, especially when we hold a title that you deem it to be very credible, and the sanctity of it is questioned because you've gone through the rigors of a process, and there are public officials who will imbue or exude, of course, you'll exude confidence because these are public or government officials who are issuing this title deeds or this certificate so far. And it seems holding a title deed right now in this country is not a security document that you are assured that your property is safe and sound. How will this matter be broached in Parliament, and what dimensions will it really take now that Mavoko is the epicenter, and then many other Kenyans who are suffering because they have been duped of their money and their title deeds are not holding any credence anymore or efficacy?
Well, the backdrop of this particular issue is the troubled, rather sad history that we have on the issue of land and the politics of land. And we have seen this happening on different scales. In many parts of the country, people one day have a place that they think it belongs to them.
Even after 50, 100 years, yes.
Yeah, and the next day, it's all gone. It's dust and pain and suffering. And I think it starts with how we manage our land, how we govern our land and the policies relating to our land. That is kind of the historical origins of this particular problem, it is also compounded by the culture of greed that we have as well, of government officials in the Ministry of Land, the Land Commission, local authorities,
yes,
you know, the old council, town councils and municipalities and counties, where everybody seems to have a stake in a program, and mostly whose focus is get rich quickly. And a lot of regulations, rules are broken in that process. So we really need to fix our land policies and our land legislations and have a very clear land policy. The second thing is to crack down on opportunistic officials who prey on people by selling false or non-existent allotment letters, and then eventually selling title deeds that don't exist. But this is a very sad story in the fact that there is a huge section of the community that has invested in this particular process. They've built their houses, rightfully or wrongfully, and it seems rather brutal for the government to suddenly wake up one morning and decide to demolish and destroy that in just a few minutes. I think
you should have given a window at least for
yes,
people to
indeed,
get prepared,
yes,
to get alternatives.
But at the same time, there are people who would argue, how do you deal with impunity? How do you deal with people who know they have deliberately acquired a piece of public land or another person's property or a government department or a private sector's property without due process, and are demanding? And then finally also it somehow puts the president in a difficult situation, because he had already said during the campaign period that there would be no demolitions. And I think at the moment what we see is that the government has reneged on that pledge. And that has surprised a lot of people, because the president has on several occasions spoken about having a balancing approach. Say you had acquired a property not in the right way, but you have invested and you have built. Should there be no kind of halfway agreement in which you don't lose your property, but you reach an agreement with the aggrieved party, where they don't also lose their piece of land. You reach some kind of a win-win situation in which you can compensate them. But this particular saga has really taken a terrible twist, a terrible turn, and I think a lot of innocent people have suffered and lost everything. And I think it could have been done better. And I think because there are many other Mavoko around Kenya, we must find a way, a just, fair way of really resolving these problems without putting anyone in jeopardy to the point that they become homeless and they're thrown out into the street.
Yeah, in the age of, or in the days that we're talking about affordable housing, that will have been the flip side of it, because we see, looking at other dailies, that there is intent from the East African Portland Cement as well to, we've seen the notice with the regularization to sell this particular land.
But that's very unfortunate. That's
what I'm saying. So you're actually taking it back for you to sell, and but you have people who've already occupied. Will there be, or would they have considered a window of opportunity for these people also who are here, if they bought it for a song and they think that is not a market value right now, on how they can actually be compensated instead of taking it back, then putting it out for sale? So it really beats the purpose, unless maybe it was for the company's development that you want to expand. But so if you're taking it back and then you want to put it back in the market after you've evicted these people, I mean, to me, it doesn't make any lick of sense. It doesn't make any lick of sense completely.
These are just part of the contradictions in our own society. If you look at the situation that has been unfolding, you see those contradictions, sorrow and disaster on one side. You see tears and sorrow on the other. you read of trickery and conmanship, you know, those binaries that characterize our society. But Dibal, the idea of evictions, the idea of demolitions is not new in our country. I think almost a year back, I gave a paper in my department, and it is in our YouTube channel. You can go and look at it, which I had entitled The Unholy Trinity, intersections of land, politics, and identity in this country that leads to the levels of violence and suffering like we have seen in Mavoko. But the challenge we have had, I think in my view, is refusal to sit down as a country and have a serious conversation on how we are taking land. In the colonial period, the Africans were evicted and their structures demolished. We could understand that because this is a foreign government dominating us. But in Kenya's post-colony, the situation continued. You know, during the Kenyatta administration, we saw similar situations. During the Moi administration, I remember in my undergraduate days in the university, the demolition of the Moroto slums here in Nairobi. In Kibaki's time, the same thing. Demolition of houses in some parts of Nairobi. People lost investments, and there are some of them who have never recovered up to now. During Uhuru's time, we saw that. Our current president, His Excellency Dr. Ruto, rode to power on a very popular promise that never again are we going to see such a kind of suffering and such a kind of evictions that have been part and parcel of our history. His deputy, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua, actually followed with a similar promise that we are not going to see that. At least for once, and I think I could be forgiven, I trusted them because I have, over the years, seen my own relatives being evicted from some parts of the Rift Valley, some parts of the North Rift. I remember very vividly 1992, 1997, my own very close blood relatives. And at least for once I said, hallelujah. Here we have actually reached our stage of peace and nirvana. Hardly a year down the line, after all these glamorous promises, we are seeing this. It's a bit unfortunate, but I still want to have hope. You know, optimism sometimes can take us places. Indeed. That when the president comes from China, he's going to make some pronouncements that will give hope in this state of hopelessness. Indeed. Indeed. That will give some kind of future in this state of disappointment.
Indeed. Right. Professor Kagwanja, before you take a short break, here is a notice as well that I just read earlier, and it's been pinned on the front page of Taifa Leo. Was yesterday in the Daily Nation as well. And it says, East African Portland Cement wishes to notify members of the public of its offer to sell the above reference parcel of land via regularization model. A first and preferential priority shall be offered to the parties currently occupying section of the said parcels. I think maybe they've considered that. Those in this kind of situations are advised to state their claim of the same within 14 days from the date of this notice. And well, if you just read the intrigues of it, we'll find that most of them, they don't own any credible title deeds, because of the fraudulent way it has been carried out. There was a promise that the title deed would be forthcoming. But in light of this, they stand to lose. But even the involvement that we have of a member of parliament in this fraudulent case, people who were expected to be representing in parliament your own people, you're fleecing them, so to speak. I don't want just to put that or say that he has done that, but this is a matter of course it shall be investigated by the DCI. But the fact that you have your face in it, it's really one thing, especially from the legislators, Mheshimiwa right? But let's hear from Peter Kagwanja briefly.
I think this is interesting because President William Ruto rode to power on the anger of what happened in part of Nairobi, Kariobangi, where one of the Kikuyu musicians, Mugai Joroge, sang very bitterly. And when you listen to that song, you feel, tears literally come to your eyes. That what is this? What is this that could not wait? That you have to demolish people's houses when there were rains. Therefore, people are not just losing their houses, but have nowhere to shelter against that rain which was there. And that big question by the artist basically spoke about the inhumanity and the lack of milk of human kindness, not only in our public, but also in our government. I do believe that we have national policies, and these national policies are spelled out openly. One of the primary issues for the Uhuru Kenyatta government and for William Ruto government is housing. Now, what would cause you to demolish what you are supposed to build rather than regularizing? I do understand the demolitions under Kibaki because we were supposed to help to get people out of land that was demarcated for roads. And I think there were compensations at that level. But at the same time, if it is not a road that you're building, and I know quite a number of people on this Mombasa Road who had built their houses were not demolished on general understanding or whatever discussion took place. So I believe that it could have been possible to negotiate or to discuss with those Kenyans in Mavoko, and the government owned by that land, because that land belonged to the government, and look for another land for Portland Cement, and then regularize the titles of those people who had invested there, even if it meant taxing them further for the purpose of regularization in order to get their papers right. But if people have settled themselves without the help of the government, they have used their resources, some of it earned painfully in foreign governments, in foreign countries, very under risky circumstances, and then they make their living, they settle their families, and are now ready to serve the Republic of Kenya. Then all of a sudden, you turn them into destitutes, so that you can trade on that land. I think that those are some of the consequences. The consequences we might face as a nation because of this humanity are dire. It's not right that you have a policy to house people, and then you set bulldozers to destroy people's houses. What are we doing as a country? What is the logic that this is government land? Yes, it was. It might have been fraudulently sold to these people, but they have papers now, and you have the leadership, the governor, the members of parliament, the members of MCAs and so on, and you have even the government investigation, the DCIs and others. Why don't you investigate before you take the bulldozers there?
Right.
So that people can have their homes.
Allow me just to take a short break. My music is up so that when we circle back, we can actually plumb deeper on that, Mheshimiwa. Questions which are very legit being raised regarding that as well. Where is the human face of the government on this, in light of also the housing policy that is trying to mete out regarding this? And where is morality and the law really having a nexus, right, which takes precedence in such a situation? We take a short break. When we circle back, we shall look at that and other stories as well, and also dwell on what is happening internationally so far as far as diplomacy and security is concerned. Don't go away, you're watching Global Today here on Morning Prime.